Call a special meeting of the City Council to order. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Sarno,
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo, Councilmember Zamora,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, here, and Mayor Mora.
Here. Public comments are now open. Anyone joining us through Zoom can use the raise hand function if you wish to make a public comment on any item on the agenda. The City Clerk will see if you have raised your hand through the Zoom application. For those that are here wishing to make a public comment in person, you will have the opportunity once the City Clerk announces your name. You will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any members of the public present that wish to speak today?
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 speakers, one in Zoom and one in person. I'll go ahead and call Lan Cottrell.
Good evening. Can I speak without this? Okay, fair enough. So, Mayor, council members, I'm Lang Cottrell, Regional Director for Goodman. I look forward to hearing the discussion on your capital improvements tonight. It's been a while since I've addressed this body, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so tonight. As I believe you are aware, Goodman and the city have a long-standing relationship. We actually consider it a partnership. It started 8 years ago when we purchased the 55-acre refinery known as Power Rain Oil Refinery at Bloomfield and Florence. Working together, we entitled the site, remediated the site, which posed a major environmental risk to the city and its residents, constructed a 1.2 million square foot Class A industrial campus, which provided a home to customers such as McMaster Car. This acquisition and development has created over 1,500 new jobs and increased the property tax valuation for the property. It also provided the needed space for one of the city's highest sales tax generator, helping to ensure that they would remain in your city. In 2017, we purchased the 72-acre Vaughn's Distribution Center at Bloomfield and Excelsior. Working with the city, we successfully renovated and leased the property to Maersk, resulting in no downtime or loss of productivity on the site. Jobs and value were maintained and created. In the spirit of doing what was best for the community and the residents, at the request of the city, Goodman agreed to build a wall around the site to screen the truck use from the street, making it more aesthetically appealing. 6 months ago, Goodman continued its investment in the city of Santa Fe Springs with the acquisition of a 5-acre industrial site at 10840 Norwalk Avenue that is currently partially occupied by the seller, OWS, a drilling operator. We currently are working with the staff to determine the best route for reuse or redevelopment of that site. Overall, Goodman has invested just over $400 million into the city of Santa Fe Springs, which is, along with other things, and it has resulted in a cumulative annual increase of approximately $250,000 per year in additional property tax revenues to the city. I highlight all of this because we truly value the relationship and partnership that we have with the city of Santa Fe Springs. Together, we have created great projects, created great value, and many benefits to the community and residents. As I believe you have heard before, Goodman is a long-term investor, owner, and as such is committed to the continued investment in the community, its residents, and its customers. Currently, the city has produced a general plan update for consideration, which is currently in draft form. We are in the process of reviewing it in detail, and we'll be providing the staff with a written response to that sometime later this week. We look forward to working with the staff like we have in the past and this body to finalize that general plan update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, next we have Annie Lozano via Zoom.
Okay, Annie?
Hi, good evening, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Annie Lozano. I have been a resident of Santa Fe Springs for the last 13 years. In 2013, I located to the Triangle area of the city, specifically Moeller Street and Guard Avenue. When I moved here, the streets were already in terrible condition, and over the next several years were made worse by the construction that followed. Our residential streets were used as construction laydown and path of travel for heavy construction deliveries, traffic, and equipment. To say our streets have taken a beating over the last several years is an understatement. Not only are the conditions terrible to look at, they are causing unsafe and hazardous conditions. I have previously sent photos of these conditions to council to review, but I encourage you to drive by and take a look in person. You will see that there are countless potholes, large cracks, and uneven paving, which causes cars to swerve in order to avoid them. This has almost caused several accidents. You will see that the deteriorating AC paving causes rocks and debris to fly up as you drive over it. You will see numerous potholes and large cracks that collect debris, such as nails and rocks, that cause not only tire damage, but can also cause a serious accident. Since early 2020, I have voiced these concerns several times to Director of Public Works, Noe Negretti. Initially, I was told that the city would be reviewing this work under the capital improvement plans for fiscal year 2021. It is now evident as we near the end of 2021 that this project was not prioritized and we were put on the back burner. Meanwhile, all other residential and commercial areas of the city continue to be maintained and improved. I believe by now the city has asked and been rejected 3 times by Caltrans for funding of this work. We residents have been patient and waited long enough while the city has attempted fruitlessly to be funded by Caltrans. How much longer is the city going to make us wait? Moving into the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2022, we are asking the city to take responsibility for their obligations to the residents and take accountability for the conditions of the streets that were already in terrible shape prior to construction before one of the unsafe conditions causes an accident. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this last speaker about the triangle area, she is accurate. We've been asking Caltrans and Metro for funding through the I-5 widening construction project, and we've been working diligently to do so. At the most recent I-5 JPA meeting, Council Member Sarno made a request, and we knew we were waiting for that answer to get that funding for the entire area. But Caltrans did commit that they would look at the most extreme parts and damage of that area and consider doing some work more quickly than waiting for the whole project. So Mr. Negrete was going to get those most immediate needs to them. So potentially that can be done sooner than later. That's the latest update on that.
Thank you.
I guess the bigger issue was, yes, the council can go forward and fund that project, but if we do that, there is no reimbursement abilities to get that money back. So we know that that area has been waiting, but I'm hoping now with this most recent statement that we can get the most immediate needs done before that overall funding is provided. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
We have one more speaker, Richard.
Hi, council members, can you hear me?
Yes, Richard, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Council members and mayors, I'm here calling on behalf of the Triangle as well. And I heard the gentleman speak, I didn't catch who it was, but you said that you were asking the I-5 for funding. Since when? How long has it been? I understand when you're trying to collect payment for something, you stay on top of those sort of things and you ask, if not every day, at least weekly, you're giving a call in, writing a letter, speaking to supervisors to find out when the funding is going to come through. They're just saying now that they're going to look at it. When was this meeting that they said they were going to look at it? We've been here for 8 years now, and streets over next to Los Nietos Park were already being paved. Those streets are already getting repaved and fixed, getting their upkeep, while we still are suffering with these terrible streets. Waiting for payment is one thing. Waiting only on pavement and allowing an unsafe area to be driven on every day by school buses. School buses pass through here to pick up students. Families drive through here. People are walking their children on the sidewalk through here. We walk dogs through here. We keep our properties maintained properly, and our streets, for a lack of better terms, look like trash. I mean, it might as well be a dirt road the way we're living right now. The new patching that was just done after the last meeting that I listened in on, you guys did some patching. The patching wasn't cleaned up properly, and pieces are now flying all over the road. And it was, not a really good job to just patch those little areas. It still allows water to seep in and under the surface, creating erosion under the streets that just creates larger potholes. So I'm asking, if you're waiting for Caltrans to look at and consider, how long are you going to look at and wait for them to consider fixing our streets? That's technically not their responsibility. The streets have been in shambles prior to the construction. This is a serious issue, and just constantly hearing over and over that you're asking Caltrans to fix a problem that they're clearly avoiding, because they've been done in this area for about a year now. They cleaned up their area, they've been gone. They're either going to pay for it or they're not. If they're not going to pay for it, is the city going to pay for it? All the other streets have been improved. The area down there by Los Nietos, I used to live there prior to living where I live now. There was shootings, there was a lot of police activity going on down there, and I felt I'd moved to the safer place from the police. What they told me was south of Florence. I've done that, and now I'm living with streets that look like a third.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes our speakers.
Okay, we will now close public comments and on to item number 4. Capital Improvement Plan, review of needs assessment. I'd like to call upon Director of Public Works, Noe Negrete.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just one thing, I know you got all the materials electronically with your packet, but just before this meeting, we set an actual binder, hard copy with all the projects. So if you find that easier to use, that's for you to keep. Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover here. Let me first say what we're trying to do first, before you get too anxious and try to take all this information in an hour's worth of time. That's taken us a little bit over 6 months of time to put that together for you. What we're going to tell you today, you don't have to make any hard decisions today if you're not prepared. We want to walk you through the process of how we got here. Okay? And then we want to walk you through the process of how much money we have to select projects for. We're going to look at the existing CIP projects. We're going to see if we want to continue with those or defund some of those to add more money to the pot. At the end, if you have questions on specific projects, we can do that as well. I'm going to try to give a baseline for you in terms of a starting point. But I do see this as being like a two-prong meeting, is that there's so much information here, you probably are not going to be able to give me a list tonight. And that's okay. That's okay. This is the starting point, okay? We're going to follow up after this meeting with you, and we'll go over specific projects with the ones we don't cover today. But it is a lot to take in. Okay, we started at almost 200 projects when we first started with this, and we have narrowed it down. Unfortunately, it needs to get further narrowed down, and we've had at least 3 meetings with the CIP subcommittee to do that, so that at least them 2 are more familiar with the projects, but the other 3 you're not, right? And we know that. So this meeting is for you. Okay, it's not for me. It's not for Robert. It's not for my staff. We know the projects. We know the process. This is 100% for you. So if you have questions, please ask. Okay, please ask. The one thing I want you to come away with is understanding the process, and then how much money we have. That if we can do those 2 things, it's a very successful night. Anything beyond that, feel free to ask away. I know we had a long night last night, so I'm going to try to move a little bit fast, but please stop me. Okay, again, this is for you. Please stop me if you have a question. Okay, with that, so we are embarking on our capital improvement plan. What that is, it's setting our projects, our priority of projects and what to do. And we do have a lot of needs, as you'll see, and this is a difficult task because I think we can all agree that all the projects are important. Now it's just a matter of setting priority based on the amount of funding that we have. And we are looking at a 3-year CIP for funding purposes. In all reality, it takes us between 4 to 5 years to build those, though. Okay, because by the time you set it in motion, by the time it's completed, it's really a 5-year plan, but it's a 3-year funding plan. And the CIP is it's a live document. Okay, like today, if we made decisions, it's like we can still add to it. We can still change it. This is just trying to get a framework of the priorities for us to work on projects. So just like what you saw out here before this meeting, that was a capital project that came with an idea. We went into the planning stage, it went into design stage, and then we went into construction. And that's what all of our projects do, but we need direction from you in terms of what projects are those to work on. So let's talk about the process first. Okay, like I said, we've been over 6 months working on this, and we basically went out to all the departments. We went out to yourselves, to the CIP subcommittee, and city manager's office, finance, fire, police, community services, and we put together a list of their projects. We sat down with them after they submitted, talked about what the scope of work was to make sure we understood that. In some cases, we changed it, we refined it, and then we had to put a dollar amount to that. And then we had to try to go look to see if we had money for that, which we'll cover here. But I do want to thank all the departments for submitting. And unfortunately, I'm telling you, we're not going to be able to do all the projects. That's what we're here for today. If we had all the money in the world, then we wouldn't be here. We would just tell you we have all these projects, we're going to get them done. You just tell me the order you want them done in. Unfortunately, we're not here to do that. We need to narrow down the list further. So once we got all the projects, we have the overview from the city manager's office. And again, we did meet with the CIP subcommittee at least 3 times to go over the projects. They had questions on the scope, on the amounts, talked about feedback on priority. You're going to hear me talk a lot about wants and needs. We had lots of discussions on that. There's wants where are maybe not essential, and needs we're going to say are more essential. And then we do look at our finances, which we'll talk about here. There's a couple of slides here that I want you to come away with knowing what our finances are at as well. Just as a reminder, the CIP subcommittee consists of Mayor Mora and Councilmember Sarno. And they were actually able to narrow down this list for us. These were the criteria that they looked at. Safety and welfare of the public, maintain our existing infrastructure, and contribute to the overall quality of life for our residents. Those are the 3 main criteria, amongst others. So we did start off with 158 projects total, and that totaled $197 million. That was our starting point. In working with the CIP subcommittee and the departments, we were able to narrow that down to 96 projects with an estimated cost of $80 million. And that was the packet that was included in your agenda report, was the listing of all those 96 projects with the backup documentation of how, what the scope of work is and what the cost is and how that cost is broken down. And then we also tried to list potential funding sources because we have various funding sources, as you'll see, to be able to build these projects. So tonight, why are we here? Okay, we're here to talk about adopting a 3-year plan. So if you think about it, if you have a home, you want to do additions to your home, you have to pick, right? You have to pick what project you want to go first, what project you can afford. If you think about it in that terms, that's what we're here for. We have a home. The home is our city. And we have things that we want to do in that city, but we don't have money for all of that. We do have some money, and we got to figure out how to best utilize that money for those projects. And that's what you have before you here today, is that discussion. So I welcome feedback in terms of if you have identifying any projects do you want us to further study or further look at. Also, if there's any funding strategies out there, I think we talked about this last time, is that we now have to start looking at other funding sources. We don't have enough money on our own between the UUT and our old redevelopment bond to cover all these projects. So we need to start looking for grants and that types of funding, which we're doing now. But now that's even more so as redevelopment money goes away, the UUTs left, we do need to look at alternative sources. One thing I will ask you today is we're going to walk through the existing projects that are left. There's only a handful, and I'm willing to go through those one by one if you want me to, but we're going to be asking you to unappropriate some money from some of those projects, and there's valid reasons why, but we'll be able to free up some of that money to add to the existing pot that we have. And of course, we always are moving forward. Even though we're having this conversation, we're still working on projects. Okay, we're always working on projects. We just need to make sure that we're working on the right projects. So we're going to go through all these things. Don't be scared. Okay, I'll guide you here. If you have questions, again, ask. So let's talk about what a CIP is first. So for some of you, I hope it's a quick refresher course. For the audience, this kind of helps understand our process. So I know we get very frustrated with how long things take, but we are following the public contract code to do this, right? We're a public entity. And it even frustrates the staff, right? Because we want to go faster too, but there are certain things that we have to follow in order to comply with the law. So I'm just going to walk you through this little road here. Where we're at, we did the capital needs assessment. That was 197 projects. Okay, so we assessed all of our needs. And we went to the CIP subcommittee at step 2. They were to pare that down to the 90. And now we're here. We're at step 3. We're at a council meeting to talk about this. In the development of projects, that's what you'll see in the all the projects have fact sheets. They gave us that. And oh, sorry, I missed this. I missed the road. Sorry, I skipped the road. Skip 4. 4 is you're going to eventually give us the approval. You're going to tell me, tell the staff, these are the number of projects that you're have approval to go forward with. And then we'll do development of those projects in terms of the planning part of it to make sure that the scope is correct. And then we hire a designer, or we design it ourselves, right? We get a plan with specifications. And then we come to you. This is the first step where you see the project is where we authorize to advertise that project. And then this should look very familiar because we have a bid opening, right? After we're advertising, we have a bid opening in this chamber. We open the bids in front of the contractors to bid, and then we come back to the council to award a contract. And so you've seen it twice already. You've seen the authorization to advertise, and then you see the award contract. After that, we have the documents that are signed, and then we have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, and then we go into construction. Okay. And then at the end, the construction starts here with the notice to proceed. We have construction, and then we finish construction like today. And then what's coming to you in January is you'll see a final payment. And the final payment essentially says that you approve the project. So there's 3 times you see a project. You'll see it when we say, let's go out to bid. You approve that. The second time is when you award the contract. And the third time is when you approve the project and the final payment. Every project that's on the capital project does that process. Okay, so when you approve all the projects that you're going to approve, that is the roadmap that we'll be using. With me so far? Okay, let's talk funding now. Okay, so funding, we have the UUT, the utility users tax, and that's our primary funding for capital projects. Our second funding is redevelopment, and that is no longer, meaning that when redevelopment went away, we got to keep the money that was in there, and then we've been drawing down on it since. This will be their last year of that redevelopment using CIP because we will have expended all the money after this CIP. And then we have street resurfacing funds that come from development. Those are only for streets. So as people develop, we impose a fee on them, and we have to use that for streets. And I'll kind of cheating here going forward is I just looked at what I'm calling our core projects. Okay, going back to needs and wants. And I just said if we were to do all of our facilities, and we'll go over those projects, they're primarily roof projects. that are leaking, a pump station over at Santa Fe Springs Park, and phase 2 of the plaza area, which is, we'll go into that too. I looked at that, all of our streets. So I have been talking to the Lozanos and a lot of other people, Forest, Wakeman, a lot of our streets, we've deferred. It's just what's happened. And we need to reinvest in those. Okay, so if I take the streets, the facilities, and if I look at lighting, we've been talking about lighting, right? Converting to LEDs. Water, we're not going to talk about today because that's going to be its own study session. It has its own separate funding. We'll do that separately. But if I'll take those 3 as our core projects, and I'm going to show you what those numbers look like. But at the end, we need to pursue other types of money. And at the bottom there, we should probably even have a conversation about maybe floating a new bond to pay for some of the capital projects. So let's talk about what we have in our bank account. So right now we have in our UUT about $18 million. And then recently, with last year's budget, an additional $5 million were put in the UUT. So we have $23 million in the UUT unallocated. Approximately $2 million in redevelopment. Again, water we're going to skip, and $1 million in street resurfacing. So if I take water out, in our bank account, we have $26 million for capital projects. And we are recommending as a staff not to spend all that money. Okay. And the reasoning is the city's never going to end, right? We're always going to have projects. So we don't want to budget all of our money, just like I'll say it's good fiscal sense for yourself, right? You budget some money, but you always keep some in reserve. That's what we're recommending as well. We're recommending that our starting point be roughly $20 million. And that's broken down by 17 from the UUT, which is we can use anywhere in the city, $2 million in redevelopment. It has to be in the redevelopment area. And then the other $1 million dedicated to streets, $20 million. So let's go back. How many million did we say was what the CIP recommended, the CIP subcommittee? $80 million. The 96 projects, $80 million. So it's a math problem, right? We need to figure that out. We need to further refine those 96 projects to start to get closer to $20 million. Okay, let's try to find some money first. Okay, so let's look at the existing UUT projects that we currently have that have been put on hold. Those are the ones that are in yellow. The one in green are currently in design, and the one in red is the one we just finished, which is the Town Center Plaza improvements. Those are our 6 projects that are remaining on our UUT list. And that's another reason why we're here, because we're running out of projects, right? We need to get a new list to do more projects. That's what we do. What we're recommending tonight is that you consider unallocating or removing the first 4 projects, which are in yellow, they're all on hold, and not doing those projects. And I'm happy to go through those projects with you if you like. It's up to you. But some of these projects have either gone away. Well, I'll just go through them. It's probably faster. The first one is the wading pools. We were looking at converting one of those wading pools to be an ADA compliant wading pool. The cost was going to be significantly more than $157,000. So we put the project on hold. Number 2, go ahead.
Sorry. The wading pool with ADA compliant, we would make one of the pools ADA compliant or have a splash pad, which would also make it ADA compliant. So that can be part of what we do at the Aquatic Center. So that would kind of coexist together. So we wouldn't just forget about it. It would actually help us. So.
Thank you. The next project is the youth intervention. At one point, we were looking at moving youth intervention next to the fire station number 4 in the old EOC. And that project was put on hold. The youth intervention is at Betty Wilson Center, and there's no longer a need to move that service to fire station number 4. And then the child care program relocation project, that's when we used to do child care. We were looking at an alternative site to build a child care program. So that's no longer needed. And then the Gus Velasco Neighborhood Center landscape restoration project, we were actually able to do that in-house with the landscape contractor. And as you see now, the front landscaping, everything has been reseeded, and then the sod has grown. So that's no longer necessary as well. So with that, if we were to do that tonight, we would put back just under $600,000 back into the CIP. Okay, let's look at so that's one pot of money. Yeah, if you want to do that now, you can. Load up on it. Thank you.
How many more projects are you going to talk about? Just 5 and 6, right?
5 is a sidewalk project. As you see, this small dollar amount, $10,000.
Yeah.
And that was part of the Caltrans widening project. That's over off of the Shoemaker Bridge, where the railroad tracks are. There's a missing piece of sidewalk there. And we've been working with, we've been trying to work with the railroad for about 5 years to get that sidewalk in, and haven't gotten their permission to do so. So that's why it's still in the design phase. And then number 6 is the outside, the parking lot that we just finished. So that one we've already expended the funds.
You know what? And you said the landscape restoration project at Neighborhood Center. That's if we go above and beyond, but the lawn's already there, right? So that's already taken care of. So this is if we would go beyond, like, other landscape processes.
That's correct. If you wanted to do something more extensive than the grass that's there now, correct?
I think it looks nice just like that.
Yeah, and if you look at it too, if you've driven by, the grass has already grown fully.
Yeah.
From that one little area. Well, not little area, but it grew really well.
Yeah, feeling good.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah.
Councilmember, you got to speak in the mic so we can hear you.
Sorry. My opinion, I'm okay because we have justification of what we're doing. The wading pool. Yeah, what's the point of doing that right now? If we're going to be redoing the pool, pull that all together on that. The other ones are justifiable, why we're going to remove them. So
I'm good at waiting because you already self-explanatory. You already pretty much told us what's going on. So it works out for me.
Do I need a motion in a second, I'm assuming?
You just need directive. You just need
Direction.
directive.
Okay.
So 2 of us have spoken, so you need at least 3. So
One more, yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, I'm okay
fine
with
with it because like you said, the childcare, we don't have that, the youth. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Good.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the second pot of money, which is our redevelopment bond funds. A couple more projects here.
Juanita.
Okay. So again, same color coding. The yellow are projects that are currently on hold. The green are projects that are in design. And in this one, I don't believe we have any projects that are in construction. So they're either on hold or in design. And same recommendation is that the green ones, since they're in design, that we leave those alone. And we can continue to do those with those funds that are allocated. And the question now is the ones in yellow. I can walk you through those as well, if you'd like. So the dog park, we would recommend not doing it at this point, but still, again, this is a living document, right? So there is a possibility to get some land from part of the excess on the Florence properties, the Florence segment properties, and converting that into a dog park. I think when that time comes, then we can talk about acquiring the land and then setting aside money for that. But at this point, we're not moving on it because we are waiting for Caltrans to figure out that property, and it's taking much longer because of their processes. The Child Center Playground, again, this is when we had childcare over at the GVNC, and there was talk about redoing a new playground. And now with that program going away, there's no need to put a playground for childcare.
No, just to specify, the program didn't go away for childcare. It just pretty much, we had somebody else come in and take over. So we still have a childcare program, but some decisions were made that actually helped out the city. So
I apologize. That is
Yeah,
correct. We have a
we don't
vendor.
want,
We have a
just in
vendor. for
case
childcare.
options for learning, listening, and then all of a sudden they think we're getting rid of the childcare.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the third project is the repainting of the bridge facade that's telegraphed in front of Maggie's, and we were actually able to do that. What's the word I'm looking for?
Wrap.
The
The wrap.
wrap. Thank you. We wrapped it so that we didn't have to use this project to paint it. So at this point, we don't see a need to paint it since the wrap is held up pretty well. Yolandra Boulevard median improvements down south, we're boundary with Cerritos. This project was looking at tree wells in the median as they're starting the tree roots are uprooting the brick around there. Even though we still think it's an issue, it's a need, we would rank that lower on the priority list. And we have other needs that are greater than that. That's why we're asking it to be defunded. We had fire station roof improvements at headquarters. Again, we were able to do patching of the roof and able to stop the leaks. So again, we think the roof lasts longer without having to replace it. The town center hall, renovate the large restrooms. Again, they're functional and operational. At this point, we're recommending to stay with those because we have greater needs than those. The historical archive room, that was a project to make a historical archive room as part of the Clark estate. And again, we would say that's a low priority at this point. And number 12 is a Clark estate master plan. At one point was to try to look at developing some of the areas that are not used right now, the primarily landscaping areas. So if you took all the yellows, you're talking about just under $750,000 that we can put back into bond funds for CIP projects.
Question. Go back to the snake, the one that's in green, the fountain repair, the snake and the Native American. So because we are hopefully in the future going to develop that area, maybe the developer can help with some of that cost and maybe we can allocate some of that money back towards the city to help with these funds.
Yeah, I can go over those real quick too, the ones we're trying to keep. So the snake fountain repairs, we're looking at design of making that a static feature with some landscaping. So we've been working with the architect on that. The Native American pond repairs, we're pretty close to finishing up those plans. So early next year, we'll be coming in to redo that liner. We'll come to you for authorization for approval. The network equipping upgrade, that's about as much as I know. I'm going to defer to IT on that to give you an update if you want. And then the GVNC reader board, that is one where we talked about putting a reader board there, and that is still on the list, and we think it should stay on the list.
I had a question about the fire station roof improvements. So we've already taken care of that, but how long is it going to be okay before we have to invest more money into it?
I don't have an exact number, but I'll show you other roofs that are in more dire need than the fire station headquarters. But we feel that we've made enough repairs to stop the leaking up to this point and are comfortable moving forward with that roof at this point and allocating money to some of the other buildings that have roofs that are in much worse shape.
I think too, when we talk about grants, I mean, when we're talking, especially with roofs, with the roofing projects, I mean, even if we do solar, we can actually look at the contractor to even help take over at fixing the roofs too. So there's different things. If we do get grants in that formula, they could help us with, all of our roofs in the city if we do decide to go that route.
And I think we're good with, I'm good with this removal with the yellow.
I'm good with the two.
1,
I'm
2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, I need you to read the fine print here. I'm just kidding. No, don't get too scared here. So I just want to show you the amount of work that went into this thing. And again, you have the hard copy with you. And I'm not going to go through all this because it's pretty intense. But this essentially breaks the request not only by department, but by section. And then we looked at different funding sources on the left-hand column. So we've kind of started a little bit of the research, trying to look for alternative funding sources for some of the projects. Leonard, if you can go all the way down. So again, this is the original needs assessment of the 158 projects and totaling just over $197 million. That's the summary. That's the easy summary. And then if you go to the next slide, it shows the CIP subcommittee reducing that from to 96 projects and then just over $80 million. But it's the same thing. It's by department, by section, and we also tried to identify available funding sources for some of those projects as well. And in the summary here, you see that the EUT, 17 million, again, the bond, 2 million, and the resurfacing, 1 million. That's our $20 million. And right now, from the CIP recommendation, we got it down to $80 million. So that's what we're asking you to do, is further get that closer to the $20 million number.
No, I see totals here, but do we have annuals that we know what we put away each year in each of those funds? Is there a number?
$2.8 million is what we put away each year.
Okay, $2.8 million. And that's an important point because just on streets alone, with our truck study, we have $97 million of road needs. And so we figure over a 10-year program, we would need $10 million a year. So the council has directed staff to look at a revenue source ongoing for roads. And we're looking at some kind of tax that would deal with businesses that bring trucks to the town. And we have ideas on how to bridge that gap. We've also been meeting with the chamber committee that has their own ideas. And we just got some feedback from them recently. Our problem is that some of the things they suggested, it's going to take quite a bit of time. We really need to get this wrapped up within a month, 2 months at most, because we're trying to put this on the ballot for November 2022. So we have some ideas that we'll bring back to the council, but you can see we get less than $3 million a year, and that's to deal with all of our infrastructure. That's our facilities, that's our parks, that's our roads. And when we have road needs of $10 million a year only, you can see our shortfall is great. So we're working on that. And that's something when I became city manager, I saw we had really very few revenue sources. There's a big number here that kind of accumulated in our past, but our ongoing revenue is only $2.8 million. So we have a lot of needs and very little revenue. So we're working on that. Thank you, Noe.
Okay, you with me, right? Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please, Leonard. Okay, so I told you I tried to reduce that number for you, okay? And my thought process was, let's look at our core projects. Remember going back to the needs and the wants? And I tried to big picture it for you and say, let's just say we did all of our facility projects, which I'll walk you through, all of our street projects, again, which I'll walk you through, and street lighting projects. And I'm calling that our core projects. If we take those 30 projects, that'll be $28 million. Again, there's no community service projects, no park projects included in that. That's the second priority, or the tier 2 projects. If I take the community services, the city manager, finance, planning, police services and fire, that's where the additional $41 million comes in. And that's the $80 million number. So even if I told you I'm an engineer, so I'm going to be biased towards streets, right? I'm going to be biased to our facilities to make sure that we're not having leaky roofs. And we really have a need to do better lighting in our streets. So if I even break it down to those, we still need to find some money to even fund those. And I don't think any of us are going to be happy if we walk away and we don't have any community service projects here. So that's what we need to work on between now and the next time we meet, is we need to figure out how to either get new revenue or add additional funds to be able to fund some of these projects that we need to have happen. And let me just walk through the facility projects, the street projects. Leonard, I'm gonna need your help, right? Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Okay, don't mind the numbering. For some reason, it started at 2. So there's actually 6 projects for facilities. And just using the numbers on the screen, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are roof projects. So Councilman Rodriguez, you asked about the different roofs and their facilities. We've identified these 4 projects as we are beyond repair. So we keep on trying to repair them. And when it rains, the rain is winning over the facilities. And those are projects we would go for. Number 2 is at Santa Fe Springs Park. That's our only sewer pump station. It's past its service life. We would recommend replacing that. The biggest ticket item on facilities would be the Town Center Plaza Zone 2, Zone 3 improvements, which would essentially be the middle field of the town center. So those projects are total there of $7 million, but $4.5 million of that would be in the town center. So if you choose not to go forward with that, you can save $4.5 million of the 28. So that gets you closer, right? Now you're at 23.5 instead of the 28. Let's go down to the streets here, because I really do think the streets do need the appropriate time here. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
What I see on the facilities is, I'm looking at the Town Center Plaza. As an improvement, is it essential improvements, or is it just for facade, just for the outside to improve? Like, what is it that actually is going on? Because I see, like, to me, Town Center Hall improvements, to me, looks like we want to make it look like the parking lot. And all these other ones are something that we have to do, because if not, we don't replace the roof, we're going to, it's going to cave in. If we don't do the sewer, it's going to back up. What's the priority of the town center that has to be done? Like, what is the priority that, or is it just for the looks to upgrade everything?
I would concur with your statement. Is that is an aesthetic project to basically take from this parking lot to extend that way.
And just to piggyback on what Juanita's saying is, you have to look at the liabilities, which she's probably even talking about too, because these other things are talking about roofing, which caters to a big liability if any of our employees or any of our patrons get hurt. I mean, and if the other one's the aesthetics, then it's an easy call to say, hey, Town Center Plaza can be put on hold, and we save that $4.5 million. So if that's what you're talking about, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I just think that's going to be a $4 million project to make it look like this. That's great. We would want to upgrade it. But to me, this is my personal opinion. I'd rather have a roof that's fixed. I'd rather have a sewer that's fixed. And that $4 million, we can put it to, it's just a small thing, but move that money around to fix the streets over there where the triangle is. It's, maybe we can do 1 or 2 streets or something. That's just what I see as town center. So kind of what you guys feel. Of course, I would like it to make it all look nice, but I would rather fix my roof than fix the front part of the town center right now.
No, I agree. If the parking lot is safe for people to drive and walk, then that could wait. But, roofs that need replacement, you're gonna start damaging the soffits, the infrastructure, the wood, and that could lead to increased expense later if the roofs aren't done. So roofs have to be done.
I agree too. Safety first, priority. These are priority. Town center needs to be, we can hold off on that.
Okay, before I go to the streets, anything else on the facilities? Okay, let me walk you through the streets. So first, the first couple projects are more preventative maintenance, but we really feel like we need to get back onto an annual program on both of these items. So the first one is slurry sealing, and you can see we have it for each year. It's roughly $100,000. It's going back into our residential areas. We pick a district and do that district and rotate it, so on and so forth. The second one, skipping number 5, going to 6, is in our budget cuts, we did remove our annual concrete curb and gutter sidewalk removal program, which again, we think it's imperative that we do. We have an annual program. Again, we're looking at $100,000 a year for that as well. But we think that just goes a long way. Preventative maintenance really, really goes a long way as opposed to waiting until it fully falls apart. Number 5, residential quiet zone study. So we've had a lot of resident input over on the Arlee side where Smith, all the train noise. This is to start the study, working with the railroad. We have been working with the railroad. They're trying to make some operational changes. Some operational things they deny, and now they're blaming the homeless for the train to be blowing the horn so often because of the homeless in the tracks. So we would recommend that we start the study working with the railroad, because that will be a long process. We have to get an application in, and that's one where we can try to find some money to do a quiet zone. 7 and 8 are residential streets that are associated with the Florence segment. So you did have a speaker talk earlier. I want to say we've been working on this for 3 or 4 years now. And unfortunately, we have not been successful, and we will wear that. This is about a $2.5 million project. And those residents have suffered, not only with the construction, but with these streets now are starting to become an issue. We're hopeful that we would be able to get some of that money. And again, if not, then maybe that's something we should look at, spending our own CIP money on this. The number 9 is already in the works. That's the Pioneer Boulevard. And if you recall that one, we did fund with outside funding, just under $1 million. We use different funding sources to do that project, and that'll be coming to you in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter of next year to start the construction. The next streets are heavy commercial streets. So if you recall, we did a pavement management study in 2016. We had all the streets rated. These are the remaining streets that were ranked number 1. So if you recall, we ranked every street with a number 1 through 5. 5 being the best, like a brand new street, and 1 being the worst condition. These are the remaining streets that are ranked number 1. Some are smaller, a lot of commercial areas. So I'll just run down the list. I'll just say the name of the street. You can look at the segment that we're looking at. Pike Street, John Street, Springdale Avenue, Marquardt Avenue, Stage Road, Borate Street, Meriton Avenue, Denard Avenue, Wakeman Street, Park Street, Shoemaker Avenue, Gannett Street, and Slauson Avenue. Slauson being the biggest arterial. And going to talk about finding money, we're going to be approaching Metro with Stage Road to see if they can fund that as part of the Rosecrans Marquardt project. That's about $1.3 million. So
Also, Noe, on the commercial side,
Yeah.
how much of, if we were to separate that from the residential, but I would add number 9 to part of the commercial because those, with that, that's where we get a lot of heavy trucks still going through there. What's the cost analysis from the commercial residential, since we are talking about a truck fee study compared to our residential?
So if I leave number 9 as residential.
No, put 9 as part of commercial
well,
because
okay,
that's
it's
where they get a
commercial.
lot of heavy trucks still.
What's an outside source of funds anyway, so it's already being paid for.
No, I know that, but just so we can have it where they know, where they realize if we're doing a truck study, they see that, they can see what's the cost of the commercial side. So then we, that's something that we can present to say, hey, this is what the cost is, because we are looking for a certain funding source for our truck study.
We've mentioned the $97 million of needs. That's all commercial streets. That's not even dealing with the residential. So it's even more with residential.
Exactly.
So the yellows for streets is about $15 million, as you see here. So if I take out the number 9, the Pioneer, we're roughly spending about $3.5 to $4 million in the residential of that 15.
The rest is all commercial.
That's not including the triangle though, is it?
The triangle is part of the residential.
Part of the residential.
Yeah.
Part of it?
So 2.5 of that is in the triangle.
Oh, if we remove that 4 million from the town center and it's only costing 2.4 million. And I know we're saying that we keep asking Caltrans to reimburse us for the triangle. At what point do we say forget it and let just us do it because it's been going on for so long? Kind of just bite.
You can do it now. You can do it now. I mean,
how long do
at any point we could do that.
I just want to know like how long, I mean, I just feel like the residents keep coming in and if that issue's been going on forever, like how long do we keep asking Caltrans? I mean, it seems like they're not going to pay. I mean,
I would, I wish I had a better answer, but I'll tell you this. I don't want to lose the money for construction. If I was you, I would recommend to move forward with the design only because the design's cheap compared to the 2.6, right? Recommend to move the design only. And that way we can start the design now. And it gives us, 6 to 8 months, 9 months to try to get that money for that area before we start the construction. And then if we don't have it by that time, then we can use our own money.
I think we should, I agree. I think we should do the design. And they had a question too. How long has it been since we have been requesting the money? How long? I mean, even I would like to know that.
So it's been about 3 years.
Yes.
And we meet monthly with Caltrans to talk about that. I'll just try to make it easy to help you understand is that there is surplus money from the I-5 project, but they have to close the project out. Remember I talked to you about our little roadmap? We do final payment and then that ends the project and then whatever money's left over goes back into the pot. They close the project out and then that money becomes available. Okay. The money that they're coming, this excess money is coming from the Carmenita segment. So I know they're talking about the Florence segment being done, recently. The Carmenita segment was done 6 years ago. The project is still not closed out. That's the problem. So they agree there's money available, but it's not available because the project is not closed out. And I wish I had an answer because I asked the same question is how long does that take to close out? Because I've been asking you every month for the last 3 years.
Well, has it been 3 years? I mean, when did they finish? They just finished the bridge, so.
Well, we started asking before they finished.
Well, that's what I mean, but technically it's.
Yeah, they finished the bridge probably about a year ago, but
Yeah.
we've been asking since before that.
Before they were finished.
Yeah, and we've been successful. We've had phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, I think we got approximately, remember how much we got on that? A couple $1 million. The last phase 2, I think we got $3 million. And the projects weren't closed out. Then they changed the rules on us. So we're kind of upset because of that, because the first 2 phases, we didn't have that. Now they're sending it to close out. So we have elevated this accordingly. And we are fighting, but at the end of the day, you're correct. I would recommend that you tell me, let's start the design.
Well, I think we should start the design too. So makes it easier. And then too, we already know when you go against Caltrans, I mean, Caltrans has always made things real difficult when it comes to getting any type of funding. So, I mean, we can do all that we can, but still we got to do what's right for our residents too.
And the reason why we're waiting is because they used our streets as their throughway during the construction. So that's why we're going after them to ask them to help with our streets. So we could fix it and be done with it, but then we're potentially losing out on $2 million.
$2 million.
From the Caltrans giving it to us.
Oh, exactly. But still, you know, doing the
Our streets were bad to begin with, but they made them worse going through it. So that's why this is important for us to understand that neglecting to spend the money to fix something now might cost us 3 times as much later on. So
If you could start the project, I mean, at least,
the design.
yeah, the design, let's just move forward on that and then go from there.
1, 2, I think Annette was
That's
3.
3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, do you know what the reason is? You know, we can't go ahead and fund it and then get reimbursed for it. Is there some kind of stipulation that just does not allow us to do that?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
really doesn't.
Yeah,
make sense.
that's the kicker is that if we go forward and spend the money, they won't reimburse us. But I think, you know, it's
Maybe
very,
that's what they're doing on purpose.
I believe there is some strategic,
They sit on it and they realize that not only that, once you have that funding and they see that all these other cities over here, the southeast cities, decide to do that, then they're taking that funding sort straight to
Taking it
LA.
somewhere else.
You know, so they're taking it somewhere else. But this is, it's sad to say, but it becomes a political game with, you know, some, you know, major players like Caltrans that know they can pretty much do this to anybody. So this is, we're not going to be the first city. We're not going to be the last city. This is part of what they do. So as long as if we're doing our part to have a design, I mean, it's just the design part. And then from there, that still gives us 6 to 8 more months to actually fight with them, because it does turn into an argument at times. So it's just, you know, whatever we need to do.
well, they did. I will say that when I did ask for the money, they did say be fair about it and give us the streets and the cost of it. And as long as it's not some crazy amount, that they would get on it right away. So hopefully, you know, we can get the design, show them how much it's going to cost, and they say go ahead and do it, and we'll say we'll fund it, and maybe we can get back the money.
And then
from them.
too, if we can too, maybe we could also use, I mean, because I know at times, you know, having a letter from the mayor, you know, that helps stipulate different processes because it's worked for SoCal Edison. Maybe it'll work for Caltrans. Not only that, maybe getting the I-5, the different corridors that are part of our, you know, and then we get even the COG, getting different letters that they can support us in writing these letters to Caltrans and getting everybody on board. I think that would probably help out a lot more. So then if any other cities are going through these struggles, we can all attack it together instead of trying to be divided, because divided, they are going to conquer us. And I mean, at least if we're together with other cities, I think we could be much stronger.
Are any other questions on any of the street projects? Okay, the third core section is the streetlights. It says traffic signals and streetlights, but the 3 projects are all related to street lights. So we talked about these before, and we've separated them out into 3 different projects. So we have the residential street lighting system upgrade. So we talked about the Danby streetlights in that area. There's 5 areas that are like that basically need a full replacement. That system is so old that it cannot be repaired. Parts, it's already exceeded its service life. So we need to remove and replace. Again, I'll go back.
no, I think they explained like, it's not just a change of the bulb, what that really means when you say the total change out.
So,
Fixture.
you know, normally the voltage is not 5,000 volts. It's a 5,000 volt system. So I don't even like our guys when they're going over there. It's just not a good thing. But it is an older system. It's called a series system. We don't design it that way anymore. It was just an older design. And it's becoming very difficult to maintain. It has the high pressure sodium light. So the orange lights that you see out there, that's the light that goes with that. It will not be able to accommodate the LED light. So if we went out there, bought the kit for the luminaire and changed it, it wouldn't accommodate that. We'd have to put a transformer and step it down because that's too much voltage. So that system was just an older design. It worked when, back in the 60s and early 70s. And now it's just time to change that. And again, now that you're there, if you're going to change all the wiring, well, you might as well change the conduit, right? The conduit's been there for how long? You don't know what's in there. You might as well change all the conduit. And if you're going to put a new LED, you might as well put a new pole now, right? Everything has a service life. And now is the time to change those. Number 4 is different. That's citywide. And those are the lights that are on a multiple system, a current system. And those, we can buy the kit. We can buy the kit, it's the LED kit, and we could take that one out, put that one on. We can do that in a much faster fashion. All we have to do is just quantify the number of lights and where they're at, and then take that out to bid and get money for that. Whereas the other system, we're basically starting from scratch. It's a new design. You have to find a new service point for power with Edison and design those plans, take those out to bid, get the bids, and then go into construction in those 5 areas. And so there's 5 in the residential, and then we separated out the industrial. There's 3 areas like that in the industrial. Again, if I'm not telling you to not do this, but I would highly recommend that you turn us loose on 2 and 4's design. There's no reason why we can't start that. Again, it's like about $80,000, $85,000 or so. But we need to start these things in motion. We can figure out how to pay for that, and if we can get varying grants, and we're looking at the different financing options. I know we've talked about
broadband Wi-Fi because, there's $6 billion, to the state of California. The thing is, we have to sign up for these things. And even if we would have signed up for the SoCal Edison poll, we would have signed up for that process. That would have been, we would have had a process where we could even own the polls, but we didn't do that in the past. So those are things that affect us now and put us in a bind now. And that's why, we have to look at smart lights. Everybody's talking about cameras. You have these smart lights that actually have these cameras. So this is why it's important that we don't want to make sure we do it right the first time, because we don't want to do the job twice. And, we just need to make sure that we're not sitting on our hands, staff and everything. So we just have to do our part to make sure that if that's out there, then let's go after it. You have a lot of other cities that if you drive by and you see their lighting, you can drive by through Bell Gardens, other cities, and they have beautiful lighting. So we just have to make sure we're doing our part. Cerritos, I know we've talked about the lights when it comes to, the 5-ton trucks. They have, solar attached to their 5-ton, that wraps around their whole thing that tells you, hey, that, you can't drive through this street. And I think there's a lot of things that we're not utilizing. I know before in the past, we talked about solar, not using it. And now we have, these little stop signs that, that we can capture all that stuff. So I just hope when we do this, we do it right the first time.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, I know we've worked with the consultant Eli just recently, talked to get into a letter of intent to kind of quarterback some of this. But one thing that would just help us to get things going is get the design on this system that's antiquated, and with all the funding that's coming from infrastructure, broadband, and so forth, we can play that into it. But as just stated by Mr. Negrete, to cut them loose on the design, let's get that going right away. And I think we can get it.
I'm fine with it, because even through the COG, they're even doing that whole with, broadband Wi-Fi where they're pushing all that. So we just have to make sure that we do it the first, because if they bring down the fixture, the transponder, they can actually put everything, attach it now. So then the Wi-Fi broadband, you don't have to worry about trying to bring the pole down again and do it twice. So now it just costs us 2 times the amount instead of doing it. So that's the only thing. So if we attack all these things now, it makes it easier. And I know through the COG, they even had a certain paper that we could fill out. It was just a one form that, we send that in, and then they're looking for funding for us too with the broadband Wi-Fi.
design on it. And then after we start the design on this, is there like a group, like or a consultant that helps us? Like, do we have an actual company that helps us look for certain grants through the state to help us? Because it seems like we might be missing certain grants that might be available for us. But I understand you're not a grant writer. We don't have someone here. Could we do something or look at other cities and figure out how they're getting the grants? Or do they have somebody that's doing it for this? Is it worth it for us to hire someone to look for all that and just dedicate that so they can help us, so we can start the design, get it going, and then see if, because it almost sounds like you're not looking for the grants because that's not what your job is to do this. That's not, you guys have your own jobs to do. Do we have somebody, or can we find someone to make it easier so you guys can do what your job is to get the stuff done? But is there a company or someone that they can help us so we can look for grants so they can help us?
We did have a grant writer.
We did.
Yeah, that wasn't successful and we no longer have them, but we have been in contact with someone who has worked with Norwalk and other local cities that has kind of quarterbacked those kind of opportunities. So we are working on that.
I mean, not that I'm going to put you on the spot, Chief, but look how many grants you guys get for us. Look at how much of our fire stuff has been because of grants. I mean, if
You can't even get a roof.
I mean, if we're doing that for fire, I mean, to help you out, it's here. I see it. You guys are here to do what you guys need to do for us. Let's help you guys help us out and work together as a team and, go to other cities before it's too late, before you find out if grants available and they're expired after the project's done. I mean, I'm just thinking maybe to help everybody out,
And you're absolutely right, Juanita. A lot of these grant programs, they are going to expire. That's why you need to jump on them now, because that funding source is, once it gets allocated, then we lose out.
Yeah,
And that's what we don't want. We don't want to lose out on any of that funding source, but
I don't think it's Noe's job. I don't think
no, it's not.
it's Public Works job. I think we should help us find the sources if we know how much, just so we can help.
Yeah, we just
everybody
had a recent meeting with Wayne and Noe, myself and Maribel and with this consultant and so we had something he's going to be submitting to us for and assisting us. So we're working through that. But I think tonight we can just get, like with the triangle area design on this Cirrus system we saw last night, these residents want that lighting and that takes time to do that restructuring. So if we can get that direction, that would be very helpful to get us going.
But I definitely think we should, we've been talking about grant writing for the last 4 years, 5 years. I mean, if not longer than that.
Yeah.
So I think we need to really, Ray, really give us a report maybe on who, if we're gonna go after looking for somebody, what grants are they going after looking for? In a quarterly fashion to know what's out there or.
Didn't we already,
Because we need to know what's going on, because we can't just keep asking for this and nothing happens about it. So.
didn't we already request this information to get, are we going to get some grant writers in here? We asked this at the last council meeting and I haven't heard anything. I'm going to let you know that we just got off the seminar with Linda Sanchez and she's telling us about the grants that they can provide. We got Janice Hahn out there.
Yeah, I've been in contact with all 4 representatives and their staffs, and they're waiting for us now on, from tonight's meeting, the priorities and what money we're looking for. We didn't want to give them, every project was on here. We wanted to get all your priorities. And they are aware that, they gave funding to other cities, and I let it be clear that our council is expecting that they do the same for our cities, for our projects. So I gave them some examples, such as a pool, such as a lighting, such as park projects. But once we get through tonight, there'll be a more specific list to provide them, and they're ready to get that. And with the consultant we had when I first got here, they were providing you with lists of information, but there was very little success with that. So I'd rather get a grant writer who we pay them once they get us the money versus us telling us about grants. We want people they do the work, they get us the grants, then we pay them. And a lot of times they don't like to do it that way, but there is a way of I've talked to some recent city managers who had that success, including the one that we just we let go a few years ago. He's now learning that's how he has to make his money.
And that's how these other cities right now, it's like a no cost to the city itself. They do the whole they do everything. And then from there, they get their money on the back end. So it does help us out.
Okay, I think I did get a consensus to start the
Yes.
design.
Yes.
Okay, you guys are doing fantastic, by the way. I think I'm more tired than you are. Okay, let's talk about the next tier projects, and this is really your homework assignment. Let me just recap here, just some math here. What I think you've told me is I came in and I looked at what I called the core projects, which was facilities, streets, and streetlights, and it was $28 million. And we talked about removing the Town Center Plaza project of $4.5 million. So now that number goes down to $23.5 million. And Robert, I'm going to ask you to check my math as I'm doing this. If we, that's 23.5. If we are successful in getting Metro to pay for the Stage Road construction, that's another $1.3 million less. That brings us to $22.2 million. And then we need to fight like hell to get the money from Caltrans of about $2.2 million for the triangle. And that would get us to $20 million. That's the good news. Okay. The bad news is we haven't even talked about the blue projects yet. So Leonard, can you scroll up a little bit? We're not going to go through all these projects. Okay. This is going to be your homework assignment. Is in your binders, you have this summary sheet, and then behind it, you have what we're calling a fact sheet of every project. Okay. Look at it, take notes. If I can have you try to rank maybe the top 10, and we'll help you do that. But one of the projects that we haven't talked about that we need to talk about is the Aquatic Center. So we need some direction. And again, it won't be tonight, but you need to start thinking about what we want to do there. In your packet, the fact sheet for the Aquatic Center combined all the different projects that were given to us. So it was looking at replacing all the decking. It was looking at adding a splash pad, as Councilman Sarno talked about earlier, to ADA compliance. It talked about adding a slide amenity there. It also had a lot of pump and motor and vault water infrastructure projects. One, we need to decide what we want there. That's the first thing. So that's one of the things we'll be coming back to you on, is to try to put a better scope of work together. Is it a full demo and a rebuild? Is that what we want? Okay. So we need to further fine tune what that is and then put a dollar amount. Right now, the dollar amount is about $6 million. That's probably one of our, I think that's our second highest price ticket. Number two highest price ticket.
No, that's just to replace what we have, not to expand, not
yes.
to do anything, more than we have now.
Yeah.
That's 6 million just to replace what's, okay. Just wanted to make that clear.
And we'll have more conversations on this when we come back. We need to really fine tune what that is and how much that is, and then prioritize that. And then we're going to have to find some money for that. It's always good to match, right? With redevelopment going away, we need to be different, right? So the best way to get money, what we've been successful is when we match. When you ask somebody to give you 80% and you match 20%, you're a partner in that. You rank higher. Okay, you rank higher in the criteria. But when you ask them for 100%, not very likely, right? So you have to start thinking about that is, let's leverage our money. Let's leverage our 20% to go get 80%. And that way we have some skin in the game. And that's more favorable when we go apply for these grants. The other project that's on there that's the biggest ticket item on there, and we've really been grappling with that price, is the Little Lake Park Field of Dreams. So as you know, you directed me and the staff to work with a vendor, ZT Baseball. We recently just got the proposal. We're examining that. But that price tag is $19 million. And I'm happy to tell you we're not going to spend $19 million on that park. If they want to do that, we should make them pay for some of that money and a majority of that money. So that's still to be sorted out. So if you take that 80 minus that 19, it's just say 20 for easy math, you're down to $60 million. You're getting closer, right? We're getting closer to do all the blues and the yellows. So that kind of helps. And take a look at, in terms of in the blues, the community service projects, as well as the public safety, fire and police, the planning, city manager's office. Take a look at the smaller dollar amount projects, right? Let's call it the low hanging fruit, and rank those for me as well, because we can do 10 of those projects for a fraction of the cost of the major projects, but there are things that need to get done. So that's going to be your homework assignment, and I'm happy to talk about any other project that we didn't talk about in that blue, but I'm not intending to walk you through each one of those.
Also, if you guys can help us out, like, if from our legislators, the ones that are gonna give money, what is it that they're also giving money to? Like, you never know, they might have certain brackets that go to the library, that go, to a pool. So if there's anything that you can give us more information on that to help us out, so then that can make it a lot easier when we make our selections.
Any of the blue projects, anybody wants to talk about now, we can do that.
That's our homework assignment, right?
I'm sorry?
Our homework assignment, right?
That's your homework assignment, yes.
You guys know what the public parking lot is, what they're trying to do? Do you guys know? Do you guys know what the parking lot extension is for the PSO? So they're trying to tear down where the gazebo is and make that a parking lot.
So let me just show you when you go home and look at this. And again, we'll follow up with you. This is what we're calling a fact sheet. So it has the project name on there. It has a picture to help you to describe what we're intending to do. And then below it, it has the scope of work. That first big box is telling you what the project is. And then below that, we tried to capture the cost. So it's not just construction, it's all the other soft costs that go with that. So you have to build it, you have to design it. There is engineering and inspection, and we have a contingency. Every project has a contingency towards it. And at this point, from the budgeting standpoint, we use 20%. And then we take that number and round it. So for this example, this is the Aquatic Center? Okay. And this is just the pool deck, the splash pad, the water slide, and the shade structure. Okay, not even doing anything with the pools themselves, not even doing anything with the water infrastructure, the locker rooms, the offices, none of that. Okay, just, I think Ray said it before, just doing what we have. Scroll down, please, Leonard. So you have the project cost there, and then we tried to identify, go up, Leonard, there you go, zoom up a little bit, there you go. So we did try to identify different grant sources. So we looked at the possibility of Measure A. I'm not familiar with the State Budget Act. Maybe Robert can tell me what that is if you want to know. And then you have the Clean California Local Grant. So even though our team is not grant writers, we did the research to try to figure out where some of these grants could be, so that if we had a person that we can go to, we can say, hey, look, we have this project and we want you to go look at the Clean California Local Grant Act. And can you find us some money for an aquatic center? And we can put them in the right direction, as opposed to just them starting blindly. We want to push them in the right step. And we've done that for every project that you're going to find in your binder. So what I would do is, take notes on there, have questions. And if you can rank your top 10, and then look at the smaller dollar amounts and rank the top 10 there too. And then I'll follow up with you and we'll go through that list to help us get closer to our number. Any questions on the fact sheet?
Do you have an approximate cost of what income the pool does bring to the city, or what it?
Ask my friend Gus to answer that question if you can.
Good evening. Thank you. To answer that question, on a good year, we generate approximately $70,000 and we recover close to 35% of our costs.
And do we know how many people actually frequently the pool during the summertime? Do we have that number of the amount of kids that?
I don't have that number readily available, but
I just
I can
wanna-
certainly do some research and provide you that information
So we
at the next study session.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
How much do we charge to utilize the pool?
$2.
$2?
It does depend on the type of program and activity. So we do
Okay.
have rec swim that's as low as $2.
Okay.
We do have private lessons that go up to as high as $85. So it really just depends on the type of program that we offer. So we offer not just recreation swim there, we offer private lessons, we offer group swim lessons, we also offer water aerobics, water exercise classes, and then we offer pool rentals as well.
Do we think that the new pool that's going at Pioneer High School is going to affect anything from our community?
We still haven't done any studies on that. I imagine that we may lose some clientele from the West Whittier area because we do get some residents or some patrons from that West Whittier area that utilize our pool. But at this time, we just don't know the scope of their programming elements. And so until we determine that, we really can't assess what that participation will be.
Thank you, guys.
If possible, could you let us see like the last 4 years, each year? Because it seems like, I'm just where I live and I see like, it seems like every year there's less and less kids going to that swimming pool for the recreation part. I mean, during the lessons are full, those are packed. But it seems like the recreation, the 1 to 3, you know, the time frame, like when it's rec,
Sure.
it seems like the crowds are getting less and less. So
Yeah, we can certainly do an assessment of that. I think so over this past year, we did have to restructure our programming significantly to accommodate our lifeguard shortage and the different restructuring of those programs, but we can certainly take a look at that.
We're talking about splash pads. Is that only at one pool or is it going to be at all the parks with the wading pools? Just one?
Splash pad. The splash pad would be at the Aquatic Center.
Aquatic Center.
What, the Aquatic Center?
Get us ADA compliant.
Oh, the wading pool. Okay.
And I don't know that we can give you an answer on what to do with about the Aquatic Center until we find out about the grants, because it ties in together. So we have to wait on information before we can give you any direction.
I would concur with that 100%. I don't think we have enough information to make that decision tonight.
Also, Noe, if you can give us an approximation from the blue, how much, you know, are you looking for us to actually spend or, you know, are looking to, yeah, what's our limit pretty much?
$80 million.
You know, I mean, well, the blue has a different limit, so there's some smaller price tags, except a couple that have one.
I think
has a
the way we did it in 13 was, you know, we prioritize what we want to see done. And then the things that are left over, if we have the money to do it, then we get it done. So wants and needs, like Noe was saying, was like for the pool, a suggestion, do we need 2 pools today? Because we don't have the community utilizing the pool. So if we're going to completely restructure both pools, maybe we close one up and we add a splash pad. So it gives it a different feature that we're not utilizing 2 pools, those types of things. But for us, I think we need to look at it as wants and needs, and where, when we sit on the CIP committee, getting the best for our community and then figuring out what those other programs will help, like the roofs. Those are necessities for our employees, but is 2 pools a necessity for what we're trying to do now. Could we spend the $5 million? Could we spend the $4 million in a better way to help with these projects? So rank them as you see as needed for the community, for employees, what's safe for everybody. And then we'll go down that line. And, you know, our roads are very important because that's what, you know, brings us to and from our cost of goods sold. So that, even though it's not the most attractive thing, it's something that is definitely needed to maintain. We hear the community saying that our roads are, you know, unsafe. So those are things that I think we prioritize as being safe. And then, you know, the amenities are something that it's nice to have, but is it something that we need right now, unless we get the money from grants and all the other places? So,
Yeah. You know, another thought, some people may not like that, but I'm just throwing this out there. Now that we have wading pools at all of our parks, and, you know, it costs, you know, money to maintain them year round, and they only get utilized during the summertime. But can we just eliminate all the wading pools from the parks, allocate all those funds towards the Aquatic Center, and actually make that almost like a destination location for our community? If we're already going to have a splash pad there, maybe some of the wading pool patrons that do visit the summer, you know, the park in the summer, those 2-3 months, could just head to the Aquatic Center if we're going to completely revamp that.
I would think that would be my recommendation, but I know those are popular, but I think they're very difficult to maintain and to staff, and having one location centrally in our city. I think that'd be an excellent idea, but
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Oh,
the
if
water
you
runs
give
year
us-
round, they don't get drained, and there's a maintenance, I know.
If you can give us a cost analysis too on what we spend on each pool, or, you know, or how, you know, if it's, I mean, because I know certain wading pools are utilized a lot, so that's the thing that we have to look at. If there are certain areas that are utilized more than others, and maybe we should probably hold on to those, and then the other ones, you know, just to see. But other than that, I mean, I would like to see the cost on that too.
and what
Yeah.
would be the cost to take them out? Because
Yeah.
sometimes that cost is
To
just
take them out, to do everything else is
Gotta
just, it
take
costs more
take
than
out
that.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, you have any more information besides, so the big ticket items we have is the wading pool. And then.
The Aquatic Center would be the big
pool
ticket
deck,
item.
Splash pad, right?
Yeah, it just as a whole, the Aquatic Center, all those projects. And then the biggest one is the Little Lake Park Field of Dreams, which we're still working on now with that proposal. And we'll be
That's-
Well,
bringing
there's
that
no
back.
way
to
we're
you.
gonna invest 19 million.
And that's 19 million they're asking of us?
Well, nobody's asking. We're saying if you do a Field of Dreams,
Yeah,
it would be 19 million. So we're not saying, that's the biggest number. We can scope that down, number one. And number two, we can reach out if we want to do this. Obviously, we're going to bring this back to you, to that developer, that vendor, and say, okay, we want to partner with you on this. We don't want to have the full burden.
That's more of a want than a need anyway. So
well, I mean, we need to make sure, because I know we talked about that the last time and there was directive on it. So but we know that too. We have to look at the traffic study too, because how much traffic is going to be coming out of the Little Lake area.
So right now, we're just at the planning and investigation stage. They gave us a proposal. We're reviewing that proposal, and we have questions that we'll be working out. Once we are satisfied with this proposal, then we will bring that back to you to give us direction if you want to proceed or not proceed.
no, I was going to ask you how we can ask the council. I know we gave a $6 million number for the pool to replace it as it is. Talked about a splash pad, maybe slides, a little bit where they're asking me to go back to the legislators to ask for funding. They usually say, well, is it a $6 million project? Is it a $10 million project? I kind of, or we have to wait to let them know that, because I really can't ask until we have some kind of formulation of what we're looking at.
I mean, if you want, we could work on that, but I think we can give you a good number to go ask.
Because we need to get, their input.
That'd be better.
Yeah. And something I can ask the council. So, we're going back to the truck tax. We got some feedback from the committee, and they're kind of asking what we're providing towards funding for streets. And I'm talking probably more commercial streets. And so with this tax, I would look that our city probably pay zero for commercial streets in the future, that tax would pay it. Because you can see we have all these facility needs, we have neighborhood streets, we have parks. And so can I have direction saying that we wouldn't pay anything for commercial seats in the future? I think they're looking for a credit there. And I would say, no, we're looking for a recapturing of that whole $10 million through our tax. So I just don't want to speak on your behalf without getting your direction. That's exactly what you want to do.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, because I got head nods by all of you. Okay, thank you.
So I got a question. So you're saying that we're trying to recoup the money that from the streets that are already diminished to recoup that money, or?
It's the commercial streets. We have $97 million worth of maintenance, and they're at different levels. There's, the 1 through 4, 1 through 5. I can't remember, but over that 10 million, they're all going to hit number 1 at some point. So we need a $10 million investment over 10 years. So, and those are all not residential streets, all commercial streets. And again, a road, an old engineer, not Noe, he's a young engineer, but an old engineer told me that if you made a brand new street, it can literally last forever. But once you put trucks and more trucks and more trucks, it erodes and diminishes its lifespan by a lot. This city is the Grand Central trucks in Southern California. So our trucks get beat by these trucks. So there's a direct correlation to truck traffic, these businesses, and not paying revenue for it. So I have no problem telling them that, but I want to make sure I'm conveying what the council believes.
I have mixed feelings on it. I agree that I think that the people that aren't paying their fair share of tax need to pay their fair share to help our streets. But I think there's also another element to it that we're not even looking at, of other businesses that don't pay the taxes on it, and they're not truck drivers that utilize that. So I'm not disagreeing with it, but I'm just saying it's not 100% of the truck.
Yeah.
The people that we are going to talk about and after, it's not 100% their fault.
Yeah, I
don't want to
understand
make
that.
them feel that it's 100%.
Right. And they did some great work on some suggestions on capturing revenues and going after other funding. Some of them one-time sources. The infrastructure bill is going to be a one-time source, but our roads are going to be continually getting worse every year. So we need an ongoing revenue source. You can see we have a lot of needs in a lot of different areas. But ultimately, we're looking at a business license fee changes that would affect all businesses, not just truck using businesses, but those are the ones that would be probably, on our gross receipts, doing most of the paying for those expenses.
Any other questions on any of the projects? Okay, I just want to summarize. So today we did defund approximately $1.35 million, 600,000 roughly from the UT, just under 750,000 from redevelopment back into the pot. Again, we can't stress enough that we need to start looking at grants. We need to put resources to do that. Again, I'll be checking on your homework. So I'll be following up with you. And if you have questions, please call me. Happy to go over that. And we will have a second CIP study session next year, because the year's over, after we check your homework.
How quick do you want this from us?
We will reach out to you, and we either set a time where we go over it with you, or we can do it over the phone or Zoom or whatever you like. Again, I like to do it. Best case scenario is before the end of the year. Would be the best case scenario.
We're going to do groups or another study session like that?
Well, we're going to do individual, and then we'll come back as another study session to
Can I
final everything.
make a suggestion? If you do individual, could we do, maybe me and John can be with one other group, because we are on the CIP, so that way we can talk a little bit more in depth of what goes on, if you guys feel comfortable with that, of having, just so we have that.
We can talk about how we want to do it.
Yeah.
We'll do some follow-up.
Okay.
Yes, please.
A lot of homework for you.
There's no penalty for being sooner either. Okay, with that, I just want to say thank you again for the time here. We had two heavy nights here. Thanks to the CIP Subcommittee for their input and narrowing it down. All the departments, so I know probably a lot of them are disappointed that their project didn't get talked about today, but we want you to go through it first in depth. And if you have questions on that, we can bring that back. We do have a lot of needs. Thank you for their time in giving us all the scopes and working with us to get those scopes of work correct. And again, we really looked at it from a needs and a wants. We try not to look at it with a dollar sign first. We looked at it solely from a needs and wants, and then after looked at the dollar signs. And last but not least, I do want to thank my staff. A tremendous amount of work went into that. You can see all the backup sheets there. Starting with Robert and his team, Leonard behind me, Celine. They did a fantastic job in presenting this. So again, after tonight, please reach out, or we will reach out to you to go over any details and come back next year to finalize our plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noe.
All right. Again, thank you for the information. It was very well presented. And yeah, thank you to Noe and the team. And I guess we have homework. So thanks for the homework. So 7:16. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.